Reverend Galen and I have decided that we would like to take you on a bit of journey for the next 3 months, using scripture, but also borrowing some of the great thoughts of Brené Brown, who's the book that this month I'll be focusing a bit on is Gifts of Imperfection. And we've actually had a little bit of journey with this book. And in July and August, we'll continue with 2 of her most recent books. And for those who watch things like TED Talks and our podcasts, Brené Brown, someone said it really quite wisely. She has an ability to speak to the secular world or the world that doesn't get church or religion anymore and put real spiritual understanding into simple ways for people to kind of get it. I was picking up Rob yesterday in Toronto, downtown, right in the heart of Toronto, right on Bloor Street. And yeah, actually this GPS thing, I thought it's pretty smart, but the friends he was staying at, they're in a house, I don't know, 100-years-old house, but there's high-rises all around them. And Marcia and Nora, who welcomed us, like my phone couldn't even find their house because the high-rises are all around them. And I was just really surprised that I thought technology could almost, figure everything out. It actually took a real person to come out and show me how to get to their place because technology can't solve everything. And Brené Brown gets that. She says, authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, and the choice to let us be our true selves and let us be seen. And so I find it really interesting in her words that Zacchaeus, known as a tax man, not very popular, known as a short man, always struggling to see or reach high, surely to find something, finds himself, although he may have money, he finds himself on the outside trying to get a glimpse of Jesus. And as a minister said in Minneapolis a few weeks ago, she said, when I was a young minister, I had a lot of advice given to me about how to be a minister. And she said, I think some of the best advice comes from this story in Zacchaeus. And what she meant by that is, I wish somebody had taught me how to climb trees. Now, I don't know, anybody like climbing trees here? Oh, Galen's a tree climber. We got it. Yeah. I don't know, you people that do this thing, I think you're also, do you break things too when you climb? But I'm a little nervous at heights. But I'm impressed by this Zacchaeus because he has this improv about himself. He climbs up to get some sight of this great one named Jesus. I want you to think about this for a minute. Climbing. Sometimes I've heard people who consider themselves to be liberal politically to be in a small town in Ontario, and it's just a bastion of conservative blue, and they feel a little bit like Zacchaeus. Sometimes I've heard people say, I'm the only person of color in this community, and everybody else is Caucasian, is white. I feel a little bit like Zacchaeus. Sometimes I've heard people say, I'm really not of the Christian religion, and I feel a little bit outside around some of your church gatherings. Sometimes I've heard people say, I'm a refugee. How do I fit in? Sometimes I've heard people say, I'm poor. How can I be seen? I've heard sometimes people say, I'm rich. How can I be seen just for who I am, not for my money? When you're a tax collector and your name is Zacchaeus, it's not always an easy place to be. Rob knows this story. In my congregation in Milton, Reverend Jerry and I were working together, and we kept hearing from the congregation, we love our choir, classical, but we want something contemporary. So Jerry and I came up with the idea that we'd somehow have 2 services, kind of please the people who love the classic and people who love the more contemporary. Little did we know what a journey that would be of trying to balance the 2. And lo and behold, this guy named Rob Crozian kind of showed up in my life, and he came in my office one day, and I had been a younger minister that took kids on Algonquin canoe trips. I took them skiing. I did all the athletic things. I hadn't really done much musically or arts. And Rob comes in, and not only is he a songwriter, but he said, I do theater. And back in his Kitchener-Waterloo days, he had done young people's theater. So he said, hey, I would really be excited about that. And I went, wow, our young people have not done that here in Milton. Galen will know this. I took it to the board, and I said to the church council, we have a new gentleman. We're talking 15 years ago, Rob, maybe 20. I said to them, we got a new guy named Rob Croson. He's actually a member of St. Paul's. We don't see him every Sunday, but you were on the rolls. I think your wife was more faithful, regular. And they went, who's Rob? And I was dumbfounded they were very cautious about this theater guy. But after about 5 years and all these wonderful shows of young people, he directed the young people. They were all teenagers that performed these shows. Some of them were written, did Godspell. Did you have a favorite, Rob? Was it Winifred? You did Godspell twice. And then even on Good Fridays, we had young people that were dramatizing the death of Jesus. Rob had an incredible way of coming from the outside of a congregation that they perceived, and although they were suspicious, especially when he started playing the guitar in a contemporary band, there were some people that kind of laughed about it. Who does he think he is? Well, Jesus doesn't laugh when Zacchaeus is up in that tree. No, Zacchaeus maybe thinks he has to try to get Jesus' attention, but Jesus says, come on down. Not only come on down, Zacchaeus, but I'm going to go to your home. We're going to have dinner, and salvation has come to you. I find that most fascinating. Zacchaeus tries to say how much he gives to the poor and tries to justify himself, but Jesus isn't really interested as much in that as Jesus has the ability to see who is forgotten, who's on the outside, and make room for everyone. Perhaps the number one job of any church, my friends, in my mind, is to see the way Christ sees. To be aware of how we shut doors on others because they're different, they come from different backgrounds. Sometimes it's through our homophobia, sometimes it's racism, sexism. Sometimes it's just the way we interpret the scriptures, and that interpretation is so almost Pharisaic in the sense that as if my interpretation of scripture gives me the right to judge all people. And I've seen that over and over again in every community of faith. But God's Spirit is bigger than any institution. I want to remember Diane Butler Bass, who looked at this passage, and she said, Zacchaeus really seemed to think that he had to climb his way up to God. And Jesus teaches Zacchaeus and all of us that the way to find God is to actually come down. Yeah, you took the risk. God bless you to be seen. But come down and let's gather around the table and sit together. So I want to show you a picture here. I think it's up there if it's next, if it's on the screen. If it's not, that's okay too. Is there a picture? Yeah. So some of you might be smiling if you're Raptor fans. This is the super #1 fan who really, he has gone, he's being reported in USA Today. He's on the internet. And this fine gentleman, Nav, N-A-V, he has been there since 1995 when the Raptors first began. But not only that, Nav, when he came as a Sikh individual to our country of Canada, he had very little. And he was blessed with the gift to sell cars. And he sold more cars than most people could ever sell in 3 months. And long story short, he became very successful. But as he says in an interview this week, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't womanize, I just raptorize. He's a Toronto Raptorize. So this wonderful fan, has never missed a game. And even when the Milwaukee Bucks are he flies over to Milwaukee. He's usually in the stands, and he's always cheering on his Raptors. And sadly, somebody tweeted, I think it was a Milwaukee fan, really words that were degrading to his color of his skin, his race, his religion. And very thankfully, the person who sent the tweet was mocking him, saying, this guy was worse than Drake. This guy's worse fan than Drake, with his cheering. Well, anyway, the wonderful news is this person that did this, although never known, like Nav has never met him, has now apologized and taken his tweet down. And to the fact of the matter, this Nav fan, has not only accepted the apology. Nav says, I've forgiven him, and I'm going to take this gentleman and his son to dinner, and I'm going to give him some basketball presents. We've taken a negative situation and turned it into a positive. Not only that, he's bought like 3,000 tickets over the years to bring children from a cross-section of the community. Because as he went to Raptor games, he noticed that there were a lot of white people, not a lot of people with brown skin or other colors. And he realized that a lot of them can't afford the tickets. And so Nav has become one of the super fans that Toronto is and I think all Canadians can be very proud of. He's unifying people. And my guess is he's not Christian. But my guess is that Jesus would look to someone like Nav and say, I'm coming to your house today, Nav. I'd love to have dinner with you. And I believe salvation is yours. And so, my friends, as you go into this week, back to Brené Brown's thoughts about risking to be authentically yourself, I challenge you and I challenge myself. There's a lot of naysayers in the world. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of judgment. But dare to be you. Dare to love, even when people hate. Dare to stand tall and dare to climb trees. And dare, like my friend over here, Rob, did, to walk into a church someday and say to a minister, I wouldn't mind doing something. What do you think about that? And even if the church board says, well, I don't know about this, trust God, and God will show you the way.